Chapter 3. Nils was awoken suddenly by Martin striking out with a wing. The boy fell down on the ice and sat there, drowsy as he was, the geese all flapping and shrieking round him. He couldn't make out what was happening until he saw a small, long-legged dog sneaking away with a goose in its mouth. The boy at once rushed over the ice after it, and although it was quite dark, he could easily see all the cracks and holes, because now he had the good night vision of a gnome. The ice floe had floated back towards the shore again, and that was the way the dog had come. Nils ran the same way and came to a large beech wood. He shouted at the dog to drop its prey, but it was no dog. It was Ch3 the fox, a truly great robber, feared all over the area. In the end, the boy managed to catch hold of the fox's tail, but for a long way Ch3 pulled him along with him. When the fox saw that his pursuer was harmless, he stopped to tease him a little. But the boy pulled as hard as he could, so Ch3 had to let go, and the goose was suddenly able to flap off and disappear. The fox was terribly angry and swung round, making the leaves swirl, but the boy kept his hold on the tail and hung on laughing. Soon, though, he was afraid the fox might grab him, so he quickly let go of his tail and clambered up a tree. Ch3 went on scampering around until he discovered the boy up in the tree, and he sat down to wait below. It was a terribly cold night, and Nils didn't dare sleep in case he fell down. At last the sun rose, and the cries of the wild geese came from over by the lake. "I suppose they think the fox has eaten me up now," he thought, "and they won't even bother to look for me." He was close to tears. After a while, a lone wild goose came flying under the thick ceiling of branches. Ch3 crept up to her and took a great leap. Again and again he leapt, but each time the goose flew away, just like a lively dance, moving further and further away. And suddenly the goose had gone. When the fox came panting back to the tree, the little fellow had also flown away. The wild geese continued their journey over the mansions and manor farms of Skane, over parks and wild fields where they could graze. One day they stopped for a while by Lake Vom, and the wild geese challenged Martin at all kinds of sporting competitions. They all laughed and enjoyed themselves, Nils most of all. "But before you run around far too recklessly," Ch3 said to him, "remember you have a great many enemies, the fox and the pine marten in the forest, the otter on the lake shore, the weasel along the fencing, and the adder in the forest meadows." And out on the fields he had to think about hawks and falcons, eagles and buzzards, not to mention magpies and crows and owls. The boy was not all that frightened of dying, but he had no wish whatsoever to be eaten up. "What can I do to protect myself?" he asked. With so many enemies after his life, it seemed quite impossible. "Keep in with the little animals of the forest," Ch3 advised him. "They can warn you of the dangers and find hiding places for you." But when the boy asked Ch3 the squirrel for help, he abruptly said no. "Ho, ho," he said, "you're Nils Gooseboy, who pulled down the swallow's nest, smashed the starling's eggs, and put squirrels in a cage. You can help yourself now, and be glad we don't chase you off home again." Oh, supposing the wild geese found out how unkind he had been before, just when he was trying to be so good in every way so that Ch3 wouldn't desert him. But that evening he was told that Ch3's wife had been kidnapped, and that her 4 newborn babies were starving to death. He must help them and show what he was worth. The children on a nearby farm had captured Mrs. Ch3 and put her in a cage. They thought she would be fun to look at, but the squirrel sat miserably in a corner, refusing to eat anything. That night, a little fellow crept into the farm with a tiny bundle in his arms and pushed it in to the mother squirrel. 4 times he ran back and forth, and when morning came, the people on the farm found to their amazement the squirrel had all her babies in with her in the cage. "We should be ashamed of ourselves," said the father on the farm. He took the squirrels out of the cage and put them into his eldest daughter's apron. "Take them out to the hazel grove now and give them back their freedom." That day, the chaffinches in all the thickets sang about Nils Gooseboy's heroic deed. There was such a chatter, a caw was bound to hear them. A whole week had gone by since the boy had been bewitched, and he was still just as small. He wondered what he would do when the wild geese continued on north. Just as he was sitting there pondering, a caw and the others came over to him, and they were walking in such a dignified way, he immediately realized he was now going to be told what they had decided. "You must be wondering," said a caw, "why I haven't thanked you for saving one of us from Smeary the fox. But deeds are better than words. I have sent a message to the gnome who put a spell on you and told him how well you are behaving here with us and how resourceful you were when helping Searly's wife. He says that you can go home straight away and become human again." At first, the boy was pleased, but then his mood changed. He was thinking about adventures and freedom and fun and journeys under the sky, and he wailed with misery. "I don't care about being human," he said. "I want to go with you to Lapland." "But that gnome is easily annoyed," said Akka. "If you say no now, I may find it difficult to persuade him later." The strange thing about Nils Holgersson was that he had never really liked anyone, not his father and mother, nor his teacher at school, nor his school friends. So there was no one he missed or longed for. "I want to go with you to Lapland. That's why I've been so good for a whole week," he sobbed. "I won't say no," said a caw, "but there may come a day when you bitterly regret it." "No," said the boy, "I've never had such a good time as I have had with you. There's nothing to regret." "Then it shall be as you wish," said Akka. Nils was so happy he had to weep with joy, just as he had previously been weeping with sorrow.